This is a Dark Magazine podcast, and I'm your host, Nalini Haynes. Dark Magazine welcomes game creator Jacob Janerka to talk about his PAX Showcase winning game, The Dungeon Experience. Now, this interview is in podcast and video format, so you can see the trailer and Jacob's very handsome mud crab with no traces of asbestos. Before we get started, Dark Magazine acknowledges this recording is taking place on the unceded country of the Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation as traditional owners and custodians of this country. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Now, PAX Australia's media release describes Jacob Janerka's game as the Dungeon Experience game by Bone Assembly, sees a hilarious and handsome and symmetrical mud crab turned entrepreneur play the role of dungeon master in this first-person quest. Players are taken on a guided tour by their crabby dungeon master where they get to meet the various dungeon inhabitants. Weird and hilarious, this game will have players gripped by the game and by the giggles. And ironically, I could find quite a bit about the Dungeon Experience, but not much about creator Jacob Janerka. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you very much. I'm very flattered. I don't think I've actually heard that description of the game. So I'm actually thinking I should actually take some notes from that and use that in our own pitch in the future.
Well, that is word for word from PAX Australia's media release for their showcase winners.
Yeah, I'll have to find that person and personally shake their hand. I think that was very, very sweet of them.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit more about the Dungeon Experience and your involvement in it? You're a mysterious fellow. I couldn't find much about you online.
Oh, really? That's pretty surprising. I guess most of the content that I put online is like a character than an actual human being. There's maybe some podcasts that I've been on 4 or 5 years ago when I made a game called Paradigm. There's a little bit more personal version of me. But the Dungeon Experience is kind of perfect description there. But a more pitchy version is imagine the Stanley Parable, but the narrator is a talking crab with $100 budget, reads self-help books, and is trying to sell you a pyramid scheme, which is kind of, how I pitch people in the pub or, in passing by while I'm shouting to people on the street, hoping that they'll wishlist the game.
And you submitted it to PAX and it was selected as a winner?
Yeah, that was great news. It was definitely one of those things where it makes you feel like you're going on the right track on how the game is tracking and stuff. We haven't really shown it publicly or to strangers often, so it's been really nice that strangers will actually give it a thumbs up, not just my partner and my mum. So
well, partners and mums do tend to be a bit biased, but I noticed that it's available on Steam.
Yeah, it should be. Steam is what we're aiming for. There's a small chance that it might be on consoles, but we will probably announce that in a later date if we can wrangle that. Hopefully it's just really successful and we don't have to worry about any porting issues and we can just pay someone to do it all for us.
That would be awesome. So I'm about to start playing the game. Tell me what my experience is going to be. I'm going to log in and then...
Oh, log in. I mean, depends where you're playing the game. Have you got some secret build somewhere? Or are you just talking in general?
Oh, I'm talking in general. Okay, I have experience playing, and I cringe, World of Warcraft. So you log in and then you start in a starting area and, you've got to go and kill 15 of this and 20 of that. But your trailer implies that your game doesn't quite fit that format.
Oh, no, right. So, Dungeon Experience, if I could compare it to any other experience, have you played Firewatch or have you played Edith Finch or have you played Stanley Parable? Any of those games ringing a bell?
Not for me, but certainly in my household, they will ring bells.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So basically you're entering this world as someone who has a soul-crushing job that probably a lot of people can relate to. And upon getting fired, your coworker provides you a potential to go into this dungeon experience where it promises you the greatest little more financial freedom. So the game is primarily focused on like the story, the art, the comedy, and stuff like that. It's got some like light puzzling and those kind of things. It's got a nipple pressing mini game. You can shave a man's back. You can play a saxophone. Those are kind of the various things that you'll be experiencing in the dungeon experience. Unfortunately, there's no massive multiplayer online capabilities.
MMOs are a bit overrated in my opinion, but
I used to love World of Warcraft. I wasted a lot of my teenage years to World of Warcraft.
Yes, and they say that you don't ever really quit, you just take a break. Well, I don't know about you, but my break's been quite extended.
Yeah, I definitely have managed to resist it. I feel like if I did have a taste of it again, maybe it would pull me in. But I know to stay away from any MMOs when I have real life responsibilities.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Now, I was looking on your website and you have a location selected for your mud crab. Would you like to explain your choice of location on a world map?
Yeah, I just when we were making the website, we used a template for like a adventure guide kind of thing that was like used for like if you're going overseas, you're going kayaking or something, and it had the template for a map. So we just decided to pick a location where there's a huge crab sculpture, which I think it is. I made the website like 3 years ago, so I can't quite remember, but I believe it is a large crab sculpture somewhere, or it's a crab themed location.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I was wondering if your intrepid mud crab was going to be having problems with cyclones and fires and the NRA and the KKK.
Yeah, where was it even? Was it in Florida or something, the location?
I think it's in Texas, but
Oh, yeah.
it's kind of on the coast with that big bay where Florida's on the other side,
Yeah, I love that
I
kind of stuff
think.
where I've done something and I've like completely forgotten about it, and someone will mention it later. I'm like, oh, right, I did make some decisions in the past that. That's kind of the best thing about comedy games that take a long time. You can replay it and forget things that you've written and actually laugh at your own jokes. So.
Well, I definitely laughed at the trailer. Now, you have a particular style. I was just having a bit of a poke around in your Twitter feed and your Tumblr, and you've made little demos with floppy guns and phone crabs, as in traditional telephone is also a crab. Um, what's inspired you to develop these, and what drew you to this, to comedy?
Uh, I think comedy was like a thing that came to me like unintentionally. Like I've always loved making like funny stuff, but I never considered it like, oh, I'm going to sit down and make a funny thing. I think whenever I started doing things, I always erred on the side of like getting bored and making myself laugh on the thing. And one of the big turning points for me was when I was in university and I took a creative writing class. And at the time, I was like really obsessed with like dystopian fiction. So like the first assignment, I decided to write some like real serious, like dark dystopian story. And I actually have really bad grammar and spelling issues. Not so much now, but at the time. And I remember all these other professional writers that were like, full red lines on everything, and they're like, this is wrong, this is wrong, you can't write like this. And then I did the second assignment, and I wrote a comedy script, dystopian but comedy, where basically the aging population in like 2050 meant that there was like these roaming gangs of like the elderly because they had nothing else to do and causing issues because there was so many elderly in our world, and that got like a lot of laughs, and it made me realize that like, oh, why am I trying to write this serious stuff when this is like way more fun? And it was at the time, it was very surprising to me how many people complimented me on that.
Yes, I can imagine the elderly terrorising the neighbourhood, a bit like the movie Red, but crossed with, I don't know, some kind of gang story.
Yeah, I kind of imagine it like what's the 70s movie in New York? I think it's called the the Outsiders. No, it's basically there's a 1970s movie about like roaming gangs in New York, and they're all like eccentric. There's like the clown gang, and there's like roller skating gang, and like a 70s jazz gang, and I kind of like combined it with that with like Quentin Tarantino. So I have like a interrogation scene like in Reservoir Dogs, but you know, with some elderly people.
Ah, yes, I can imagine. Reminds me of the Thursday Murder Club, where elderly people interrogate the police.
Oh no, I haven't heard of that one. Is that like a book or a movie?
It's a book. It's really funny.
Yeah, I have to check it out.
You're part of a team, so who else is on your team, and how do how do you like make the most of everybody's strengths?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of people. So like my co-creator Simon Boxer, my programmer John, composer Dmitry Golikov, and recently 3D artist Asher Waterman, who we hired like last week, 2 weeks ago, I think. So, and there's like a bunch of other like contractors, like our voice actor Garrett Swanson, and yeah, just a huge cast of voice actors that are working on there. And yeah, to answer your question, like how we bring all the strengths together is like trying to one finding someone like when I'm looking for someone, I'm trying to find someone that has kind of a unique voice and but also fits within our framework because there's a lot of talented people out there, but I think them segmenting into the project, they have to have a certain type of humor and a certain kind of like they get what I'm trying to do, which sometimes can be quite hard to find. But when you do, it's like a pleasure where you can tell them like a joke, and they'll be able to uh, basically build upon it and really give some like extra fun stuff. So, for example, I wanted in the demo you'll get to see, but there's a private saxophone performance by the Crab, and he offers it to you if you as like a consolation prize if you dislike the demo. So it's like, what do you have to lose? I'll give you a saxophone performance. And basically, it was just going to be like a full like minute kind of music video, but then our programmer suggested we make a playable saxophone. So that's something that you have to look forward to in the game, and it turned out, if I say so myself, quite good. So can't wait to show a playable saxophone.
That sounds impressive. Now, in this day and age, well, right now, Microsoft is busy acquiring Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. How important is it to have indie games in times like these?
I think very important. I mean, indie games are a lot of them are supported by some of these bigger companies like Microsoft and Sony. Like Game Pass actually does a lot of good things, like supporting some smaller indies to get their game out there and also get paid, which sometimes can be very hard if you're privately publishing and stuff. But yeah, it's always a bastion of creativity. I think indie games are a really cool space where you can be really creative and be paid off for it. And it's like any creative pursuit, it's like a roll of the dice, and you still have to be really lucky to get to a place where you can support yourself. But I see it as something that is much more likely to happen to say compared if you want to make a band or something like that, and this successful music artist versus a successful indie game developer. But that's just like a theory that I've thought, but I don't know how true that is.
So, you have a day job to pay for your passion project?
No, I work full time on the project. So The game is funded by my previous game, Paradigm, and it's funded by the federal and state government. So we have funding from Screen Australia and Screen Victoria. So we've got some
Awesome.
grants from them. So they've been a great help.
Do they help with things like help you work with, like practical tuition on how to get the most out of your voice actors and stuff like that? Or is that kind of on you and they're just giving you the money to go out there and make good stuff?
I think it's kind of a combination. So yeah, they do give you the money, and when you're doing these kind of pitches, you're like kind of embedding that into your budget of like what you need and stuff like that. They will encourage you to, if you do need some help to learn how to do directing with voice actors, you'd embed that. But they do offer you like connections with like publishers if that's something that you're looking for, or like contacts. And I think their bodies are actually, governing bodies are really good. They're really helpful. And I think in Australia we have to, especially now because we've got federal, anywhere in Australia you can get this funding. We're really lucky. If you talk to a lot of other people in different indie scenes, they wish they had it. And that's why I moved from Perth to Victoria, because of the funding. So that was a big move for that.
That's interesting, because Screen Victoria, there's a similar body in New South Wales and South Australia, and they tend to fund a lot of good stuff, but we don't really hear much about Western Australia so much. So that's interesting.
Yeah, they I think now that they're currently maybe getting some new funding. I don't know the story about it, but they've been saying that for years. But I heard some rumblings that they're actually getting some good funding. So that's really cool. They deserve it over there.
Yeah, it must be good to see your friends and peers getting a bit of help and enriching the scene.
Of course, yeah. That's the big thing with funding, is that you're not just investing in the one person, you're investing in the community. So like if one person hits it big, often that they'll reinvest it in some way, or one way or another, back into it. So, and on a capitalistic part, that makes the government money too. So it's a win-win situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, so your game Paradigm helped fund this project, which helps employ more people and
Yeah.
helps grow the industry here in Australia.
Yeah, 100%, totally. And it brings up the experience as well, because, yeah, like it's very hard to find experienced people in certain areas, just because it doesn't have the areas for people to be juniors, like, and that kind of stuff. Like, juniors are very important to learn and take chances on people.
Yeah, yeah. What are your favourite games in any medium to play?
Favorite games in any medium? Big question. I'm enjoying Baldur's Gate 3 at the moment. That's I think, like a lot of people. I'm trying not to play it too much though, because I've got this deadline for PAX to get the demo ready. So I'm trying to be a responsible boy. But I love that game. Yeah, classic answers like Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max. Those are like the point and click kind of influences. And I really enjoyed Psychonauts 2 recently. Half-Life for shooters, Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, Quake, the classics. Used to play a lot of Counter-Strike, but multiplayer is pretty toxic these days. I try not to dip into my toes again. And yeah, WoW was pretty good back in the day.
Yeah. Yes, it's interesting the way things come and go. Yeah. Well, now we'll turn to the Dungeon Experience trailer.
A place of quests and adventure. A place of powerful magic, enchantment, and dark evil. A place to escape irritating co-workers. The Dungeon Experience. The theme.
Hey, it's your boy, the Dungeon Master. I had some creative conflict with the video editor, so I went ahead and fixed it myself. Okay, enjoy. Dungeon Master Creations. The Dungeon Experience is an immersive first-person fantasy guided tour. Run by me, a low-level RPG monster, turned entrepreneur, and all-around handsome crab. Wow, look at that beautiful symmetry. Those clippy, clappy claws. Take the time to explore our dungeon. Exploration. And meet our many dungeon inhabitants.
Hey, you really don't need to speak to me. Consider me a table. Just part of the room.
Transition. We also have very high-quality merch at the gift shop. I drew these ones myself. I like to call this one Mischievous Man Finds Comfort in Caressing Large Pickle. So, come on down to the Dungeon Experience. Oh, and if you visited before, there is no longer any asbestos. I took care of it. I had my video editor who was out there. No asbestos.
Is there anything that you'd like to say about it?
About the trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, this trailer actually is quite outdated. That's one thing I will say. It came out, I released it 2 years ago. So we've actually spent a lot of time since then upgrading the art style of the game. So you can't actually, we've hidden it pretty well in the trailer, but we adopted, this might be overly technical, but a baked lighting style. So basically that means that the lighting is no longer like real time in the environment. So it's got like lots of like soft bounce lighting and that kind of stuff. But yeah, this trailer was like really fun to make. Like most things, it's like a pure struggle at the beginning because you're trying to encapsulate in a minute 30 the whole game. And it probably went for like 10 iterations. And the big selling point we realized at this point was that the crab is the selling point of the whole game. And your interaction with him is kind of like a character. It's a very character-driven game. It has all this like other conspiracy and pyramid schemes and stuff like that, but your connection with this crab is the most important. So we made it very emphasis on people loving the crab, and thankfully it really came across. I was very stoked when we released this trailer because people fell in love with the crab, and sometimes this can be intimidating because if people don't like the voice or something like that, it can really kill the character. But yeah, thankfully people liked his voice, and yeah, very happy with how it turned out.
Well, I just love the very handsome crab, and he's so symmetrical too.
Yeah, that was a really good one. That came like randomly later in that process, that kind of joke. And the clippy clappy claws is quite funny because I had a few friends show their kids, and there's something about the clippy clappy claws make kids like lose their minds. And it's not really a game for kids, but I actually like that kind of stuff coming through.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it depends on the kid if it's task-oriented game. I mean, they might not get the work humor, but
Well, sometimes there's some adult themes in the game. It's not so bad, this game. My previous game, there was probably a few more adult themes, but I think probably younger kids could definitely play this and not to be traumatized. So
So when is this demo coming out for PAX?
So PAX is on the 7th, I think, or 5th or 7th of October, or
Yep.
whatever that is. Yeah. We're still debating whether or not to put it online yet during PAX. So it might be PAX exclusive at the time, but if we have things all schmick and ready, we might secretly put it out online and not advertise it just yet, and then do a bigger push, because marketing it while you're at a convention center is kind of hard to do. So we might do a secret upload and then do like a more public, hey, the demo's ready for everyone to play.
And when do you expect the final product to be released?
That is a secret question that I cannot answer to you, but next year, middle of next year is what we're aiming for. There's a spreadsheet that tells me when exactly we should be done. And it's a very rigorous spreadsheet that we spent at least a week on. So hopefully the spreadsheet is correct and the spreadsheet gods will be kind to us and we do everything on time.
I have vague memories of having to do Gantt charts at uni for timelines and stuff. They're a nightmare. The actual chart itself is a nightmare, let alone getting everything done on time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I try not to be that kind of person who's the chaotic creative, because like it's just unsustainable for long projects. So I try to be responsible and not hate it too much. I always have to tell myself like, this is good. The spreadsheets are good for you. This is good medicine. Don't be like, I'll just figure out it later. And I've got people working with me now. So the previous game, I was mostly solo, so I didn't have the responsibility of people having, families and and other responsibilities. So.
Well, congratulations on being a PAX Showcase winner. And
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to seeing you at PAX.
Same to you.
Well, thank you to today's guest, Jacob Janerka, who is one of the creators of the Dungeon Experience. Watch this space because more authors and game creators will be guests on Dark Magazine's podcast over the next few months. This was a Dark Magazine podcast, and I'm your host, Nalini Haynes. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and have fun. And don't forget, there's a video version of this podcast. Bye.